Hi, Kathy. I'm so excited to be at the Pulpwood Queens. I have been waiting forever, not only to show you this book, but to share it with all of you. And ever since, I have to say, most of the authors I know are from going to the girlfriends' weekends. I have made such fast friends. And to share this book, which took a lot of time and a lot of heart, is just thrilling. So thank you so much for inviting me tonight.
Well, I'm very excited to be talking about A Boob's Life, which is How America's Obsession Shaped Me and You by Leslie Lehr, who is our guest Book of the Month author tonight.
That's me.
First, before we get into this book and just how wonderful it is, I want to talk about how the first time you came to Girlfriend Weekend. Let's see, I'm trying to think how many years ago.
I must have been 2006, I want to say.
Yes, and that was a really big year.
Big year.
2006 was when we really first started and moved downtown, and we just added the great big bowl of hairball, right?
Yes, and I dressed as Audrey Hepburn for Breakfast at Tiffany's and was hanging out with I'm gonna blank on his name. It was so much fun. It was the first night dressing up as 50s waitresses and then dressing up in the ball, and first time I'd ever seen alligator on a menu. And it was like we roomed with different people and met all these people, and it took me like trains, planes, and automobiles to get there. And I had just gone through a divorce and was separated, and so it was like this big new book adventure with all these great new girlfriends. It was really exciting. I loved it. It was wonderful.
Well, our newest book is The Pulpwood Queen Celebrates 20 years, and it all came about because Claire Fullerton, who just jumped on here from Malibu, California, she'd come to a girlfriend weekend, and she'd written this story on the first year of coming to girlfriend weekend. And I never know what people think. I always just get the complaints, So she was in Southern Writers Magazine, and I go, is that what people really think when they come? Because I've done this for so long, I don't even think this is crazy anymore.
Oh no, it wasn't. I came back in 2013, and it was still, that's when I had bows and was ready. But every year it's great.
It's so much fun. And what is wonderful is I have now realized after 21 years, this is where I've made the greatest friends of my life. These were the people that helped me when I was going through my divorce and my big move to Holly Lake Ranch, and who held my hand and supported me. And I honestly, for everybody listening out in the world, around the world, I want to tell you that the book club members, if you join a book club, will become the support group that you have the rest of your life, because it's just been phenomenal. So I'm thrilled that you're back. And this book, I know it looks very vampy and provocative and very Betty Page, but this book is an important book because you have covered every aspect of how breasts have been through the ages, but also even more, you have resources and research and all these things, and we don't even realize how much the influence of breasts have had on our lives until we started telling the stories on Breathless Bubbles and Books this week. She's been sending us stories, would you remember, when you got your first bra, or what was your experience, or all these wonderful things that she's been putting up. And I love it because there's actual pictures in the book, which I love. And just even how the bathing suits have changed the way that, remember they used to be, when I was a little girl, my mother wore those full piece suits that were very Esther Williams. They had like pointed bras in them,
Yes.
And they were very spandex, flat stomachs and hips and tiny waists, and a lot of them even have belts, belts. And just how things have changed in the bras today are all about leverage. Hike them up, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And like when I was in high school, it was more about the skinnier straps you had, the tinier bras, the more that, I don't know. It's so strange. And then we went through a phase of minimizers. It's just amazing to me. So I'm going to turn this over to you, and I want you first to tell everybody the story behind the story of how this book came into being. I've already sat in with you and Denise Kiernan, listening to you do a wonderful, wonderful interview with your husband, John Truly. That was fascinating, his perspective. But just tell us the story behind the story and how this book came about.
Well, Denise actually first is somebody I met at Pulpwood Queens. So it's just another woman who's fabulous author from there. And I have to say, I never intended to write this book. It wasn't my plan at all. The last time I came and saw you, Kathy, I had chemo curls. It was kind of the first big event I went to after, oh goodness. Okay. I'm not going to get choked up. I promise. I just said I did the audiobook, and it was really hard not to cry and not to laugh and do all those things. But anyway, I had recovered from breast cancer. My hair was growing out. I was feeling good. That's why I played Audrey Hepburn, because I was able to like pull my hair up, and I was still thin from being sick. And anyway, I had gone through all that, and I got out of the shower one night. My husband and I moved to our dream house overlooking the ocean, this little condo, which was essentially a reward because I had always wanted to live by the ocean. I grew up in Ohio, moved to California, and we finally were here. Our first night, it was supposed to be really romantic date night. And I get out of the shower and I look in the mirror, and my breasts they did not match at all. They were like pointing in different directions. And I was so filled with rage. And then I thought, after all I'd been through, not just all the hell of cancer and a couple surgeries, but all my life, I thought, I wanted breasts so bad when I was little, and it was all about cheerleaders and beauty queens. And then I finally got them, and then I had to hide them to get jobs, and I'd show them to date. And then I breastfed, and then they got saggy. And then my mom accused me of being deformed because she didn't do that. And I ended up getting breast implants, and then I got breast cancer. It was like, I realized my whole life, I just wanted perfect breasts. And after all I'd been through, I looked in the mirror and they were wonky. And I was so mad that my husband said, you should be glad to be alive. And of course I was glad to be alive, but I was feeling better. And I thought, but I still want my breasts to be beautiful, because that's part of being beautiful in America. He accused me of being obsessed. And I thought, no way, I'm a woman. I am not obsessed with breasts. That's a guy thing. And so I kind of calmed down, but I really wanted to call my doctor to fix them as if they were broken. And we sat down on the bed kind of before the date night, but he had recorded the last episode of, a famous comedian who was just on the end of his big show, big famous, a lot of celebrities. And the guy told a boob joke. And I thought, okay, it's clearly not me, but I wanted to know why. And I was still so upset. Date night was off. He went to sleep. You know how men can just go to sleep so easy. And I was staring at the ceiling, and I went into the other room and I looked at a picture, the one you just showed, that's in the book, of my mom and my sister and I, with those teeny tiny little strips of red cotton over our nipples. And I remember I immediately cracked up, because I remember my sister was 1, I was 3, and she could not keep it covered. And that was a rule. You had to cover your nipples. It was like brushing your teeth, right? And I thought, wow, at 3 years old, I knew something was bad about nipples. That's how young it starts. So I started Googling, and I Googled breasts, because I thought, why do I feel like this? Why am I so obsessed? What's the big deal? So I started Googling on the computer to see if there were any books about it. And I thought there were books on breast cancer and breastfeeding, and there were a lot of chicken breast recipes. And then in boobs, it was all porn. And there was nothing connecting a whole entire life. And so I just thought, I had to be a detective and figure it out. And since I had been sick, the analytic side came back pretty fast after chemo, but I hadn't had any real ideas of what to write. That creative side wasn't quite back yet. I was still on a lot of meds. And I just thought, oh, this is it. And I had all my scrapbooks there, and I started looking through my scrapbooks and seeing every stage of my life. And you know how scrapbooking used to be with the Rick-Rack scissors and the news clippings. Well, I was one of those people all my life. So I had all the newspaper clippings and the song lyrics, and I realized it was the culture. And then I found this research that my life started. I was like one of the first generations to have training bras, because some man invented that you either train your breasts. And my mom, my dad had Playboy everywhere, and he went to an Ivy League college, and they gave it out in the library. And that was such a big deal. And advertising, suddenly TV was everywhere in color. And I learned on the internet that men's eyes look at a woman's chest within 200 milliseconds. It's biological imperative, to choose a mate. And yet size doesn't matter. But advertisers exploited that and put all the women on like Petticoat Junction and, all the women in the 60s and the shows I grew up with had big boobs. And so suddenly in your living room are these perfect women with big boobs. And yet doctors were telling women not to use your boobs for babies. They were for a formula, right? I mean, you had to feed them with formula. So boobs became this sexualized thing. And my whole life was almost the perfect example of how I got so affected by boobs are such an important part of beauty, for men. And I thought, okay, I had to be a detective and really explore this. So I was able to do the research and think of all these different subjects and kind of trace my life. So it all really started that night. I had the title that night. I mean, I would never have called it a breast life because breasts are personal, but boobs, well, that's just a thing. That's how, I have in the book 150 names, and it was really fun. And it was like a mission. I had to find out secretly. I wrote the book so I could decide if I was really going to fix them or not. But then when I started finding out all this stuff, it became just a much bigger deal about women all through the ages and how it has affected us in every way, in ways we just take for granted. So it was just this mission I had. I couldn't not write the book.
I mean, it's interesting because, I was just flat as the board all clear up until I was almost a junior in high school. And then they just grew. And I can remember one of the most horrifying moments of high school was when they called each one of us in from class to go get measured for our cape and gown. And they called my name, and one of the guys goes, "Guess what her measurements is?" And I'm walking in front of the class and everybody's looking right at my boobs. And one of the high school football boys yelled out, 40 double D. And I was horrified, that somebody would say something so personal. So I ran into the office. And what's really funny, when they measured me, I was 40 double D. Exactly. And I was like, oh my God, and then I had to go back to the class and everybody's, what are you? And, and then I thought later, what about those girls in the class that weren't? How they must have felt when the guy started shouting this stuff out. The teacher never said a word. And it was so embarrassing to me. And, this was the age of the 70s when we wore halter tops.
Of course.
I couldn't wear a halter top because if you're really big and you wear a halter top, you're vulgar.
Of course.
A little.
You're judged by your size.
So, my friends that were more normal in size, they could wear these little shorts and tops and they were cute and, popular. But if I put them on, you look like a hooker, and so I couldn't wear them. And so, I had to wear the fluttery sleeves and the puffy sleeves. It was just a horrible time for me. And then, people would always make those remarks to you about your size, whether, and I never thought we should be judged by the way we were made by God. We're the product of our parents' genes. My mom had boobs, my grandma had boobs, my great grandma had boobs. And my great grandma showed me one time, she had huge boobs, but she was like 4'5". But she wore this cloth they made them. They were like muslin and they had strings. And they would wrap themselves tight. And
in the 20s?
This was, no, my grandmother, my grandmother was born in 1910. So she was born in the 1800s and she wore those. I mean, we had a lot of generations, but I was fascinated by, I thought, well, that makes more sense than these pointy things that they're making us wear. I just want one of those wrap things, and everybody goes, well, those are old fashioned. I go, I don't care. I didn't care. But,
and
you talk about all of this, shape and the points and it's so unnatural. Yeah. I mean, nobody has their boobs come in and they go to,
perfect. And suddenly, and they're supposed to be perfect of how they look to attract a man to feed your babies. But then once they feed the babies, they're not allowed to look like that. And also no one wants to see them feed the babies. It's still a big no-no. But I mean, bras weren't even invented until the early 1920s. And now funeral homes have to put bras on dead women.
What?
Yeah.
Well,
so it's like this whole thing that's created that women's bodies aren't, you know, they have to be a certain way to be beautiful and to be proper. And for me, I really think it's a judgment thing. And people who think that, oh, they don't care, they've taken things for granted. And there's because other people care and make it hard for us. But
they
they
actually
should,
put bras on dead people.
Yeah.
On dead women.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's
yeah. A lot of funeral homes.
That weird.
Yeah, that's one of the last kind of fun facts I found out. I was like, why?
That when I was reading your book. Wow, that's
yeah,
crazy right there.
That's just in one of the fact pages between the chapters. I couldn't like fit. I had to tell my story and kind of wrap the kind of talking about how the culture caused it with my story. But then there were facts that just told the whole picture, so I could put a whole timeline together. And that's in one of the like fun facts chapters. And
I'm going to go back and look for that. But you know, it reminds me of a friend of mine who was a bookseller said she had, you know, artificial
breasts.
What do you call it? What breasts?
Implants. And breast augmentation implants. It's the most popular elective surgery in America still. I mean, it's like, this is how hard it is for women to be beautiful and need to look a certain way to feel good about ourselves. You know, it's this double bind of beauty.
Well, she was telling at our book club meeting that she went to a friend's funeral that had also had it done. And she said she was in the back of the room and the casket was open and the boobs were up over the sides of the casket by like,
oh no.
And she's going, oh my God, she goes, and she said, I told my husband, have them taken out before they bury me because I don't want my boobs to be higher than the side. But I thought, oh my God, I never even thought of something like that.
Oh yeah.
How embarrassing would that be?
Yeah, I don't want to go there. I'm going to be cremated and sprinkled in the ocean.
Oh, but there is a lot of things. And there's also, you list a lot of resources and you list warning signs for cancer, statistics, you've got photos. I mean, it is like, there's a book called The Breast Book, which is, it's very comprehensive on everything to do with the breast, but it's more academic. This is real. This is the book.
Yeah.
You know, that you could give to somebody who's going through, you know, whether they're having a breast reduction or increase or cancer, or even, you know, the argument that you have with maybe the gentleman in your life, what is the obsession with it? You know, that it's fascinating. I read one time, I always try to you know, I went to so many sales conferences on how to be a good salesperson. And one of the things I always told you was compliment the customer. And you always, you know, try to find something that you like about them. Don't do it falsely. But I'd always say, oh my God, that's a great tie. I love it. Or I love your shirt. And I found out later in the psychology class that when you, I don't know, Robert, if you can answer to this, or it said the majority of men, when you compliment them on something that they're wearing, they think you're coming on to them. I thought, oh my God, I've done this.
Gotta be careful.
I've done this and so I asked a guy, an author friend of mine, I said, you know, when I complimented you on the shirt, what was your first thought? Will you tell me the truth? And he goes, I thought you were hitting on me. I go, oh my God, I had no idea. Isn't it funny how we think differently about different things? I just thought it was a great tie or great shirt, or I love your haircut. And they're like, she likes my haircut. Mm-hmm. But there's other things she'd like about me too, you know?
Right.
And I just, you know, but I think most women, I don't know, they dress for other women. I don't really know. I think there's a percentage of women that dress for men, but I think most guys always say, why so much makeup? Why so much, you know, of all of this? And I go, it's because we like it. You know, we like that kind of thing. You know, being a cosmetologist and being a professional makeup artist, you know, you're always trying to make people look their best. You know, you don't want them to look like they're a mask or anything,
Right.
but it's interesting. And just in the time period of when I first started wearing a bra in high school to today, how they have changed. I mean,
Yes.
oh my gosh, if they'd had sports bras when I was in high school, I would have lived in them because you know, I was always on the go and stuff. But they didn't have that. They had those
No.
Playtex.
Yeah, I remember wearing underwear bras for gymnastics, you know,
Oh.
and but sports bras, when they were invented, it was two women who sewed two jock straps together. And it was called the jock bra. It's true. And then they sold it to a champion who made millions on it. You know, that's what people do. That happened with the original Maidenform bra too. But yeah, I mean, they did it because there was a runner and her strap was falling down and she was chafing. And so women definitely invented that. But I wonder now with the pandemic, you know, how many women will go back to regular bras? The industry is definitely changing to be more comfortable. I don't know. As people go out, will we start? I don't know. We want to be comfortable, and yet we also want to dress sexy or, you know, dress attractive often when we're mating or courting or whatever. But then the men don't want you to show it, right? So it's like breasts are this weird thing, like you said, be natural, you know, don't wear makeup, but it's so hard for them. And like to get ready for stuff, you know, men could just
Many
leave.
rules, you know, a guy can throw on a shirt and a jacket and go out
Yeah.
the door, and you've got to go, is this too much? Or, you know,
Right.
is this dress too short? Or is this, you
And
know,
we always have to think about our breasts, and business women lose valuable time when men are having another meeting. They're doing their hair and their makeup to make sure they're good. And are they covering up their breasts, and, you know, or how much can they show, and what's tacky and what's not. And I really thought the whole reason I did the book, and I'm finding a lot of mothers are emailing me that they spent all night up with their daughter talking about these things, that it's opened up these other subjects. Because I mean, every day women make a decision about how to present our breasts to the world or hide them. We all put our bras on one strap at a time. So it's like everyone can identify with some part of it. And we don't, just to realize that it's a bigger thing that we take for granted. You know, it really represents women and people who are you know, gender neutral. The first thing they do, even Elliot Page on the Ellen Show, I think, was talking about people either, you know, take them off or put them on because it does represent women. And so it's a big, heavy body part. And it's also literally an organ, because it takes our blood and chemically turns it into this customized immunity milk. That makes it an organ, but it's the only organ that doesn't have a medical specialty. I mean, there's no doctor that just deals with breasts over a woman's lifetime. So it's, you know, all the research for women really is kind of new since women doctors, but breasts are a big deal, whether it's breast cancer, breast nursing, breasts, you know. So I feel like we need to all understand it's important. They're not just, oh yeah, my boobs, so what? It's a big deal. Other people think so, so we need to also.
well, you know, if we talk about men, there's a certain part of them that they cherish.
But they don't show as visibly. They're hidden, and every day it's hidden. You know, nobody makes jokes as much about it because they're usually mean, right? So way more many boob jokes, and there's not as many nicknames for them. You know, so they're not like out in the public view. I mean, you can call a guy you know, but that's like a bad thing.
Say the word.
I don't know if I can say that loud. But you know, besides that, it's boobs. I mean, get called all kinds of names, and oddly, a lot of them are either food or ammunition. I noticed. I have a book club guide on my website, and I have all these ideas for like different games and questions and outfits of like different bras you could wear through the years. And I also have a section on food based on nicknames for breasts, and I had to be careful to make it smaller, because between pancakes and melon balls and you know, all the things that breasts get called, cupcakes, yeah, raisinets, you know, there's a lot of snacks you could have for a book club.
I don't know. I never really thought about this stuff that much because I'm kind of a tomboy. But yeah. I remember Neiman Marcus started this thing where for breast cancer awareness, they would have celebrities decorate bras and auction them off. Do you guys remember when that went around? So I got this brilliant idea in front of my shop in Jefferson. I had this giant tree, and it was October, which isn't that the breast cancer month?
Yes, Pinktober, for sure.
So, Pinktober. So I decided that I was going to ask all the Pulpwood queens to donate a bra, and it'd be the Erin Go Braless tree. You know, like Erin Go Brock, you know, the
Yeah. Erin Brockovich, because she showed her boobs, definitely.
Right. So
and she was so smart, it didn't make her stupid.
we put all these leopard and hot pink bras in the tree, and then I think I threw in a bunch of Mardi Gras beads, and I didn't think anything about it. The tourists came to town, they walk up the walk, and they saw the sign I had, and they go, "Take a picture with the tree." I mean, it was a real tourist attraction. And I took pictures all day long. People would laugh, and they'd come in and they go, "I love it," you know, and, you know, where can I make a donation? And then about 11 o'clock that night, I got a call from my landlord of the building I was in. And she said, Kathy, you've got to go down there and you've got to take down those bras. And I go, "What?" And I said, "Why do I have to take down the bras?" She goes, "I'm getting call after call from the ladies of the garden club, and you know, the hotel across the street was run by the garden club, and they said, we don't want to see bras in trees." And I said, "Well, this was started by Neiman Marcus in Dallas. It's a legitimate, you know, way of bringing breast cancer awareness." And she said, "I'm serious, you've got to take them down." So at about 11:30 at night, I was with a giant rake on a step ladder, fishing all those bras out of the trees. And I just thought, you know, really, and that really wasn't that many years ago. And I even think even if you did it today, people would throw a fit in certain places, but there was nothing risque about it. I mean, it was just, you know,
But
people,
that's the whole thing about why, you know, bras are so boobs are this object of, like, they're scary or something, you know, and they're either really good if you're a mom, or they're really bad if you're tacky, and the whole censorship around them. I mean, they censor. I mean, Stephen Colbert did a thing on his show with two circles, and then as soon as he drew a dot in the middle of circles, they blurred it, you know, and you can see him going like this. But and like Modigliano, I think I pronounced that right. I had to do it for the audiobook. He and Picasso, they get blurred on the news because you're not supposed to see the nipple and maybe the bra, which is the point of the breast. And it's okay, but it just seems like, why make women uncomfortable about a body part that we have? And bras, I mean, there's some pretty bras, but especially for breast cancer awareness, I mean, that's just horrible that they made you do that. You know, it's not like, oh, boys are going to see that. Yeah, like they're not trying to, you know.
all the women that walked up the walk, they just thought it was fabulous, and everybody took all these pictures, but it was up one day, and then I had to take it all down. But you know, and so your book has kind of become a springboard to us really thinking about this and having the conversation. You know, why is that? I mean, even this picture on the cover, this bustier, you know, strapless bra, that is designed so they can have support under a strapless dress. I mean, that's all it is. It is designed so they can have support, but yet it's considered, you know.
Right, but also the shape of it isn't realistic. And tomorrow on Breathless and Bubbles, I'm posting the book trailer that shows all the different shapes. Kind of, you'll see, it's very cool art thing with Carolyn Ray narrated it, and it's all about, oh, then we're supposed to look like this, and it's not really realistic, but you know, it's like how women are supposed to look. So I love the cover. I think it's thrilling.
Okay, I've got to go grab something. Keep talking. I've got to show you a picture of my mom in the 50s. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Well, the great thing about the cover that's really helped me is last week Entertainment Tonight, or a couple weeks ago, put it next to Michelle Obama's Becoming and Glennon Doyle's Untamed as trailblazing, you know, books by trailblazing women changing the world. And I think that, yeah, it's an important book, but I know the cover helped. So whatever it takes is a really good thing. And since then, we've been talking about the book in Psychology Today and at universities now. And it's like, come for the boob jokes, you know, stay for the important stuff. So that's my goal.
In my first book, I've got a recipe for the Pulpwood Queen Double D cupcakes.
Oh, I love that. I want one. Are they chocolate? I want them in all flavors.
No, they're definitely chocolate. But this is a picture of my mom in college. Now I'm going to tilt it. Can you see the front?
Look at that. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Now my mother, she was in college, Miss 3D, which was a big thing on campus. She was
Wow.
speech and drama, and she's got the 3D glasses on. She's Miss 3D because she was a drama major. But look at that.
What year was that?
This would have been 1950, early 50s.
Right.
Because she got married in 55, and then I was born in 56. So she was a sophomore, and then she went out to Hollywood. But that was one of her college pictures, and we all laughed at it when I was growing up because why are they so pointy?
That was well, I can tell you why they're pointy. They developed those bras during World War II when the women took over in the factory. The men developed them to essentially protect the women's bodies from, they made like shielded ones from the factory equipment. And I'm like, how would a projectile bra protect your breasts? Clearly, it was so the women in overalls had a shape so that the managers could see the women's shape. That's my take. But by the time Vietnam rolled around, those were the bras that the protesters threw in trash cans, saying that they were objects of, male torture and stuff, because women aren't built like that. But that also is how you needed to be beautiful then. And then with cheerleaders, they had those under the tight letter sweaters, when fabric got more clingy, and that's a real thing. And now then, Gaultier and Madonna made it famous in her bustier, and that shape is now, it went from being this horrible thing and how you had to be to now it's high fashion if people do it. So it's
in the Austin Powers movie, they wore that shot.
Yes.
Machine guns.
Yeah. Katy Perry shot whipped cream out of hers in California Girls, the video, wouldn't you want to be a California girl? Yeah, it's a big deal. And I think Twilight Zone, or not Twilight Zone, Space, one of those space, Star Trek.
I know which one it was. Yeah, they did the same
thing. It was Star Trek. They had women in another planet.
But it even carried on into other things. Like we always had Cadillacs. And our family car was a 1957 Cadillac, and it had the black rubber bumper bullets on the front of it. And they were very, people always used to point to the front of our car because they were very breast-like, on the front.
Were they the bumpers or the headlights? Well, I mean, headlights.
They were not the headlights. They were a bumper that was shaped like a boob, but it was covered in black rubber. On the front of the all chrome. It was a pink Cadillac.
Oh, beautiful.
You'll have to look it up, Google 1957 Cadillac, but we called them bumper bullets. And they were kind of funny, but they put them on lots of cars, but Cadillacs in particular. I think some Chryslers and things too, but it carried over into other designs,
Yeah, they called those bullet bras for a while. Yeah.
Yep. So this has been fascinating. So have you started you're doing this blogging book tour right now? Is that what you're doing?
Well, I've been doing all kinds of things online, and right now I'm doing getting ready for Mother's Day. I have a newsletter, and in fact, there's a Goodreads giveaway this week, and book clubs. It's really book club season. I'm talking to lots of book clubs. Pulpwood Queens is absolutely my favorite, of course, and when else could I wear a crown? But it's kind of moving into, this is a great Mother's Day present, and then the audiobook comes out in like 2 weeks, and then we're into summer, and then we have to decide about bikinis. So then I'm hoping to make it like an alternate reading for colleges, because memoir is women's history, right? I mean, when else do we see how women's lives are? And this goes all the way through, and yet there's so much humor that, of course, there's other things happening with the book. It's
I think we tend to humorize it because it's embarrassing. And so if we kind of joke about it, we can kind of, because I was one of these people that always just, didn't want to show anything. I covered myself up, but I don't like people looking, at my,
of course.
And you can always tell when somebody's just like,
and people's backs get sore.
It's not good. I think we should open it up for conversation. And if any of you guys have questions and everything, unmute yourselves. And if there's anything you'd like to ask Leslie about anything to do with the book, now's the time to speak up. Yes, Grace.
Hi, Leslie. I have not read your book. I'm totally delighted by this conversation. And I'm just curious. One of the things that I'm 67 years old, and when I first went to work, it was very much about dressing like a man.
Oh, yeah, the bows.
The
ties. It's in the book for sure.
So it's all about the bows. And now I watch newscasters, and it is all about the décolletage. It is about they're going to a cocktail party. It is 5:30 in the morning. And I'm very curious about the balance between us being women, and Robert, it's okay, you can weigh in here, but us being accepted for whoever we are, whether we're big, small, whatever, whether we want to dress in neckties or not. But I find it very interesting that in the 70s, we donned this attire of men's suits, and I believe we all looked hideous. But now all of a sudden, we all look very sexy at 5:30 in the morning.
Well, we all don't. Not all of us.
I definitely do.
They
But-
wear those on those shows. They wear I call them the Band-Aid dresses. They look like colored ace Band-Aids that are.
They are called the bandage dresses. Hervé Lejar, I
It
think
looks
is
like they're wearing a giant Band-Aid, and I just go, how could that be comfortable? You know,
it's like a full-on girdle, but it's for ratings.
What are we saying about ourselves as women? You know, and that's a challenge for me. So talk to me about that, please.
Well, it's definitely a challenge. And I think that is, we're saying I have a job and my newscaster says, this is what I need to do. Cause at 5:30 in the morning, you won't find that as much in the serious news hours. You will in late night weather meteorologists. And then I have a thing in the beginning of the book. Cause I remember I was like seeing a meteorologist doing that. And I started making fun of her. And then I realized, wow, now I'm part of the problem. I'm judging another woman by her body. So I think that advertisers are still using women's breasts for, to make them look. But I think then also we have the celebrities who show a lot of bosom. And it's a real question about, is it empowering to show it or is it exploitative? Because the men still are going to take the advantage. And I think it has to do with perspective. And so part of the challenge is for us to not judge ourselves by our bodies, not judge other people by our bodies, because people are going to have breasts. And I, when I'm with someone and they're showing cleavage, it's like, do you want to say something? Do you not? It's uncomfortable. It's definitely something to be aware of. And it is a rude awakening, whatever channel you're watching, I'm sure they want you to look, but I wonder how comfortable she is. Who knows? It's a question that doesn't have a good answer, but I think it's one that is really important for us to just be aware that there's an issue there,
Thank you.
They always have them, do that. When we kicked off Good Morning America's Read This Book Club, and then eventually I went to New York and I got to go meet Diane Sawyer in person. And I remember meeting her. I was just struck by how lovely she was, but I noticed that we were off camera. It was like every Friday they have a concert, and
right
in the concert, and I was off camera talking to her, and she had these pointy-toed shoes on that were stiletto, and I kept seeing her lift her leg and rub it on the back of her calf and then lift her other. She kept, resting each foot, and I go, oh my God, those got to be killing you. And then when I looked at her legs, they were orange, streakity orange. And I go, what's that? She goes, oh, every day they make me put the spray on tan before I go on so my legs won't look so white. And I go, really? And I was thinking, here she is, a serious newscaster, and she's being forced into these shoes that are crippling her, and she's got to put on the spray on tan. I mean, I think it's one thing to look nice, have your hair done in a suit or whatever, but do we really have to wear shoes that are killing us? And I mean, the heels on them were like that high, and they were super pointy. And she goes, they just want you to, have the long leg
But the they that she's talking about are the men who are the bosses. And the more
Right.
women can get into those places of power, hopefully things will relax.
Well, and I
So,
think that's what was so important about that movie that came out with Charlize Theron. Weren't we talking about the other night, Ruth? It was called Bombshell.
yes,
Bombshell, and it was about the three newscasters that went public on what was
right.
happening in their job and what they were being told to do to keep their job. And I just thought, I know how many of the women, or even Robert, how many of you ever have been in a position where you've been uncomfortable in a work situation as a woman?
Everybody, every woman.
My biggest thing was I started lifeguarding at the country club when I was 14. And the board of directors who hired me were, would come by and say, how's everything going, the pool, and everything. And they say, why don't you come over here and have a seat on my lap? And I'm in my bikini. And I go, no, I don't think so. I'm not, no.
Oh, that's uncomfortable.
It was really uncomfortable, but a lot of the lifeguards did,
Pressure, they felt pressure to do that.
and I felt very bad for them because I always said, no way. But it was very uncomfortable to me. I mean, these were my high school, fellow guy students' dads. It was really,
Ugh, that's
it was
icky.
really, really creepy. And,
Yeah.
I tell my mom and dad about it and they go, oh, they're just goofing around. I go, no, it was really creepy.
Yeah, it is creepy.
And so I didn't like it very much. And I can remember coaches, a particular coach, I won't say at what school I was at, but the coach told me that in front of the whole class, he told me, Kathy, if you lay off the Snicker candy bars, he goes, that dress would fit you better. And I was just like, and first of all, I didn't eat. I was always starving myself in high school. I don't know if you grew up in the 70s, but we were
Yeah.
always dieting. I mean, trying to be Cher, And so I thought, no, I don't eat candy bars. I'm just, that's.
And it's none of his business.
And what a thing for a coach to say in front of all the other students. It was
Yeah.
really, really embarrassing to me. And, but how many of you have had things like that happen? Yeah, Grace. Any example?
I just wonder what,
Kathy.
hi. I just wonder why other people, I'm not even going to put a gender on it, think they can pick apart somebody else's body parts. It just is beyond me. And I guess my question to the group and maybe Leslie, if you have any research on this, is the new generation of women taking it. I don't know whether I just raised my daughter to like be mean to people who, I mean, one boy when she was about 14 said, oh, you're good looking. And she said, back up, perv. And it's a little bit of an overreaction, but I was proud of her for that because I would have just kept walking,
Oh, absolutely. Well, there's two things going on there. One is when the parents say, oh, don't worry, because they don't want to cause a problem. But then also a lot of girls are raised to be polite and be nice, and that is, you clearly didn't, and that is working in favor of your kids. So bravo for you.
Well, thank you. I think it's a generation too, though. I think all her friends are like that as well.
I don't know.
They don't get by with it.
Well, she's in a good group of girls, but I feel like right now, there's some, the competition on Instagram is both empowering, but also really competitive of these women to look good and airbrush their bodies. So I think it's better, but it's also worse because it's out there and everyone can see what you look like. And so there's a lot of competition.
I think it's changing though. I think, advertisers like Dove who show girls that with real body types and of all different ethnic
cities.
Yes, yes, that's the word. I think that it's starting to change. And I've noticed that even some of the magazines are doing, famous people without any makeup or touch-ups. And, I'm one of these people that I take a new picture of myself every so often and post it because I have had authors that have come to my bookstore, and I was so looking forward to seeing them, and they get there and I go, oh my, the picture they used for their author of their book was like taken 25, 30 years ago. And then they show up and you go, oh,
Who are you?
I don't want anybody to go when they meet me in person, go, that picture,
Yeah.
I want them to, and sometimes I'll even put pictures up where I don't have any makeup and I've just blow dried my hair, because to me, it's not more of trying to be what people want. I'm playing dress up.
Yeah, that's
I'm
clear.
constantly, it's theater to me, I'm always putting on shows. So I love to play dress up, and I think it's easy to change your look with makeup and hair and costumes. So it's a different way of looking at it for me, but I'm perfectly comfortable without, makeup too, with my hair in a ponytail and the ball cap. I just, but when I'm trying to be professional, I try to look a little bit more presentable.
You're also very confident, and you don't have to compete with these things. And I think what you're saying is true. There's clearly a big movement for change, but it's kind of always 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And we can't take it for granted that things are going to get better for everyone. It's kind of, we're seeing that 1% of like the first of this and first of that, and a little body positivity here, but the bulk of things are still, not great for everyone. And so we need to just be aware so that it keeps moving in the direction where we can all love our bodies. I always say, like I have on the back of my mug, love your boobs. That's, whatever it is. And whether that means you need to make them bigger or smaller or whatever, it's your business, because we have to live here after all. But it's important to be non-judgmental so that then we can carry that also to other people and stop judging each other, especially as women. There's clearly power in numbers, right? And now we can really work together and hope make some long-term changes for all this stuff that'll make people not say, oh, it's just boobs, or oh, that's okay, and that's just how it is, and boys just say those things, because it's not okay.
No. I think my daughter's generation, they're in their late 20s, early 30s. That's not an issue with them at all, and all their friends. They're very empowered. I wish
That's because of you, Kathy.
Well, they're very empowered. I was not. I was so conscious of every single little thing, and I had to learn how to not cry. If you read my book, Grace just read it. Do you remember when I was in the Miss Eureka pageant?
Absolutely.
My mother forced me into this pageant, and I was just a kid. I was 15, and I put on my Empire dress. It's purple with my purple platform shoes, suntan pantyhose.
And of course, God, I remember those
eggs. Remember the eggs? And
yes,
I had my, I had my hair all whatever, and we had to walk down the courthouse hallway with the judges, which were all the businessmen in town, and they would read, Kathy is a sophomore at Eureka High School. She's in the choir. She's in the blah 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 blah, and they said, and her measurements are. And I remember they said 36, 34, 36. And I remember I walked by the judges stand right as they said it, and the guys all started laughing and elbowing each other. And one of them was one of my friend's older brothers. And I was just so humiliated that, and I weighed 135 pounds and I'm 5'8.5". I thought, I thought I was fat, but I'd give anything to weigh that now. But anyway,
if you had only worn a belt, Kathy, it would have been fun.
That's what my mother always told me.
No, those are perfect. But measurements were recorded even on the Miss America program up until, it's in my book. I have a whole thing about Miss America, and then they all had implants at one time, and boobs were a thing. But measurements were part of the beauty. I mean, that's how beauty started. It's a shame because it really leaves a mark. Obviously, it's not right.
Just think to myself, isn't it better to be healthy? You have no choice in the way you look. You're a product of your parents' genes. And so it's always bothered me that we're judged for that when it should
Absolutely.
be, what's in here and what's in our heart, and whether we're a good person or whatever. And that's why I think that, when I crowned us the Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys, is because we're the beauty within queens, because we're reading and we're developing our own self-worth and value through being lifelong learners, you know, and learning about other peoples and places and cultures. And so to me, that if, you know, nobody should be judged for anything. I try not, you know,
No.
but we're ingrained to do that. So we've got to teach ourselves to, if you take away all judging, some people wouldn't know what to do with themselves.
But I mean, that's exactly the last chapter of my book. It goes from we're judged by this, and then we want to be equal, and we're not equal for all these different reasons. And by the end, real feminine, inclusive feminine is all women of all different colors and all races, and all men, and all people of different abilities and different mental aptitudes. It's like until everyone's equal, and that's not going to happen as long as we're judged by our body parts.
No.
So that's hopefully the direction of
or by
progress.
Color, or where
No,
we
of course.
live, or education, or what our parents do, or what kind of car we drive, you know.
Right. We're
I've found that some of the people I most admire, you know, do not have, you know, accreditations behind their names. They worked hard, you know,
Right.
and worked up to a place where they taught themselves how to be experts in whatever they're doing, you know. And I think that has more value to me than somebody who has 50 million degrees. There's nothing wrong with, you know, one of my biggest accomplishments, I finally graduated from college. That was a personal bucket list for me. But
Yeah,
it doesn't
wonderful.
mean that I'm better than anybody.
Yeah, you're the same.
The only person that we should compete against is ourselves.
Absolutely. And I really feel every single day we can be better.
Yeah.
You know?
Be kinder, be
Right.
less judgmental. If everybody would just take one day to try not to judge anything.
It's amazing. We don't even notice we're doing it. We're like,
even know we're doing
yeah.
it. And it can be something as simple as the way you see a mother dealing with her child in the grocery store. You know,
Yeah,
you don't know the full story.
absolutely.
And
Nobody knows.
I can remember being pregnant out to here, and I have a child that went into a squalling fit because I wouldn't buy her something at the, you know, as you're checking out. And people were looking at me like I was the most horrible person in the world because I was just slamming the groceries on the belt. Hurry. And the lady was like, 1 potato, 2 potatoes. And I was going, and my daughter's just throwing it on the floor while I fit. And I just thought, oh, if I could just get out of here. And, you know, I went out and I had a long talk with her, and I said, it's obvious you don't know how to act in the grocery store. So guess what? You're not going to be going until you learn how to behave. So I told my children to this day, I said, for 8 years, I never took you anywhere because you do that. You wouldn't behave. And I said, okay, then you'll just stay home. And then finally one day they realized that, I really want to go to a restaurant or a movie, and so they started, but it took me a long time because they're kids, you know, kids, they're going to be, but there's nothing worse than being in that situation or being in a restaurant where you got a squalling 2-year-old, you know.
Right. But mothers are judged really harshly.
Yeah. Nobody ever
It's
said
not right.
the dad. Nobody.
Yeah.
What was that movie? Was it Mr. Mom?
Mr. Mom.
Where his wife went to work and all the neighbor women wanted to come over and help him. And I thought, well,
that's a man wrote that movie.
Yeah, you can tell. Because I think, but I understood that because when I had to go on a business trip, when I was a book publisher's rep, they go, who's going to keep the children? And I go, well, they're going to stay with their dad. And they go, oh, you know, you're going to leave them with their father?
He can't handle it.
You know, I found out later that I didn't leave him with him. He took him to his mother's.
Of course.
The minute I was out of sight, they went to his mom's, and then a minute before I came back, he went and got him. And
it takes a village of women.
And the kids go, yeah, we always went to Riri's, you know, so.
Yeah, women do the bulk of it. And we've learned that the hard way during the pandemic, all the responsibility. So we need to get credit. It's not babysitting. It's, we got to raise up our children and respect women for what what our breasts do, but not define us and limit us that way.
It's a wonderful jump start. I imagine these book club meetings that we're going to have are going to be amazing, the conversations. And even, it's generational, because if you talk to my mom, my mother would have a different viewpoint. She goes, well, that was the fashion.
Of course.
She would stand up for this 100%.
Because you have to, though. You experience it and you can't be wrong about your life. You have to just learn slowly as things change for everyone. And that's how the culture was. So you can't, that's like, even now, we can't criticize people who are doing it trying to be beautiful in ways with their breasts, because we have to live here and people they need to live with themselves. But if we could just know more.
Yeah, I think people have to do what they feel best for them. If somebody wants to do that, I really don't judge them anymore. I used to, probably when I was a kid, but now I think to myself, well, somebody has made them feel like they just aren't pretty enough, or, and they keep having all these things.
Absolutely.
I mean,
we all have boob stories.
I used to do Joan Rivers' hair, and, she's had a lot of work. And every time she would come to Shreveport, she'd call me, and she was the most loveliest person I've ever met in my life. And then she was criticized. She was criticized first because she wasn't pretty enough, so she had all this work done. Like Phyllis Diller. Phyllis Diller was another one. Then they were criticized because they had all the work done.
Can't win.
You can't win.
No.
And I think it's fabulous now that women are letting their hair go natural, gray, silver, and there's no reprimand. Now, that's just, that's a boring color for me.
Well, we should be able to do what we want. And Black women too are going more natural. Everything's kind of coming around, I think, so women can hopefully be less judgmental.
We have to do what we feel makes us feel best, and just quit judging whatever we do. And it's very interesting how I'm telling you, this is going to be the perfect book club selection, because now we haven't even talked about this.
I know.
Know what's coming now, and I don't know if all of you know what's coming now, but something pretty wonderful came from you writing this book. Do you want to share what happened, what's happening now with your book?
Sure. Salma Hayek is making it into a television comedy series for HBO Max. And it's so funny because this book has obviously some funny parts, and also some serious parts, domestic abuse and breast cancer and all these things, but she's making comedy. It's in development right now. It's going to take forever. These things have a lot of steps. They're just finished writing the pilot and has to go through a lot of approvals. And what's going to happen is my boobs are going to talk. So obviously it's not exactly the book, but essentially my boobs are going to say kind of what my alter ego would be thinking. And the main character is Leslie. So I get to be executive producer and have some say in the things. Yeah, really. I'm like, well, they asked me if I wanted to do that. And I thought, well, why pick another person's name? It is Leslie. And they're like, oh, it's not really your story. And I wrote the original outline and stuff, but then I looked at it and it's like, oh no, actually, a lot of that's really true, but it's made to be present day instead of starting back and being this whole arc of life. It's going to start present day and then have like 3 generations with my mom is a big character and one of my daughters, and probably have a son, and kind of deal with the issues of women living in a woman's body. And what's so cool about Salma Hayek doing it is you look at her Instagram feed, it's all about boobs, 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 boobs. And she and Dolly Parton, I got to say, with 2 of my favorite boob people, they use their boobs for good. I mean, Salma Hayek is a genius. She is a producer of.
So is Dolly.
Exactly. Both of them do things that help the world, clearly, right? And they know what attracts the attention, and it helps them make more power, be more powerful to do all these things. So I couldn't be happier. I got to say, I almost fell over that. I went into the producer's house and she's like, oh, talk to Selma on the phone. And I'm like, is this a crank call? Is this really you? And she's like, oh, Leslie, I'm obsessed with your book. And I just like died and went to heaven. But it's very exciting. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be half an hour comedy, and as I said, there's so much coming out with the pandemic. There's like a log jam of projects. So I have no idea when it'll be. So it's like, don't wait and see the TV show because who knows when it's going to happen. It's going to be a different story. But the real story that she's basing on is my story in this book. So I'm just, and in fact, I had her interest and interest of the producers even before I got a book deal. So it's been very tricky. And that gave me confidence, to like, oh, this is an important story. And this has been a strange experience for me because the book sold the first week of lockdown and came out during lockdown. And now things are opening up. And it's like, I spent years on this book and this whole thing has been, it's like my boobs were like locked down and now everything's out. And so we'll see what happens next. But I'm excited.
The average person doesn't realize that when you sign a contract for a book to go to option to film to television, then it goes to whoever that director and whoever's writing it. The fact that you are brought on board is important. First of all,
absolutely, because
most authors are not brought on board on their own projects, and the fact that you're a woman makes it even more. I mean,
it's all women. It's only women. And I wanted to originally write it, and they were like, "Yeah, we need." And I've had screenplays produced and I've written, but they needed someone like approval, easy to approve. And also, then I kind of thought, I'm not even in some meetings because I figure like everything I have to say is in the book. All I can do is mess it up, right? So I was in initial meetings with the producers, but then as they pitch it, they don't want me to. I don't want to mess it up, so I just let them take it. So for me, saying, okay, I'm not going to write it. I could write some later, but it's more interesting to me to see what professionals who are doing it right now will make of my story in a way that meets the whole TV audience. That's different because this is my baby, and yeah, I was thrilled. And it's like it was kind of a last minute thing that I said, well, if I'm not going to write it, for sure, can I be a producer? And they immediately were like, absolutely, you can be executive producer. You're in all the decisions. So I will get a say in who plays me and how the story is. And I've told them what's the most important things to me is that my mom looks smart. She has to be pretty and smart. And beyond that, I don't care. So I have to be respectful.
Well, it will be very interesting, and I hope all the Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys will support you on this, because out of all the books that we pick every year, I think about half of them get film optioned, but actually made into movies or television series, not so much. I mean,
even getting to the pilot stage, there's actually people writing it and having meetings about it. It's like, that's like 4 green lights along the line. And I have to say also, when I recorded the audiobook, that was such an emotional experience that I'm kind of glad to have a little bit of distance for the TV show, which is also a comedy, but it's still going to be, a little close.
Is it going to be a dramedy where they're going to have?
It's going to be like, that show that was like Fleabag kind of thing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, but, and I remember on that phone call, she said, we're not going to the networks. We don't want to have three laughs in a commercial. We want this to be a serious show that's funny, but makes you think, that's relatable. So
I'm watching a series like that right now on Hulu calling Being Erica. And I'm fascinated with this show. My daughter told me, she said, you've got to watch this show. You've got to check this out. And I said, oh, okay, I'll check it out. And then my sister said, it's wonderful. And I watch a lot of films. That's why Robert and I do the film club, because we're both, but even like now we're going back and doing films from like the 50s, the 30s. We're doing My Man Godfrey, and it's about a story about a forgotten man, which is what they called homeless men back in the 30s. It's fascinating.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Oh, it's a great movie.
And the clothes, oh my God. And there's
Sarah Lombard and William Powell. But
they were like, the bras that were like halter bras, like the little silk. Anyway.
so I watched it, and I'm going to watch it again. And I hadn't seen it in years, and I remembered it differently. But the social aspects of the movie is actually relevant to today, because everybody
Absolutely.
thinks the homeless people are all homeless because they're bums and they won't get a job. And I was just talking about this with Mandy Haynes, my executive director. I said, I spent a year working at the Methodist Newgate Mission teaching life writing classes. And I found it was people just like me who, through a series of making a bad choice, things tumbled. And, when you lose your home and you don't have permanent residence, then you lose ways of having a job, because you can't get a job unless you have a permanent residence.
Yeah.
I found out all these things. And so this place became a resource for people. One guy said, I could get a job at a restaurant, but I don't have the clothes
Right.
you have to have dress slacks and a dress black shirt and, nice shoes and a belt. And I said, let me make a few phone calls. And I called a couple of my business associates and said, can we get this guy these things he needs and he got the job because he has.
God bless you.
And
Yeah.
so, this is things that anybody, we don't think we can make a difference in somebody's life, but I think we spent a couple $100s to get this guy outfitted to apply for this job. And he walked in wearing it. They hired him on the spot because he was dressed right. Isn't that funny? That if you just have the proper look and grooming, you can get the job. But if you don't, so why not? I know hairdressers, I've done it myself, where you volunteer to help give somebody who's been homeless a decent haircut,
Right.
or a makeover or whatever.
Yeah.
We used to do it all the time. But I learned that these people were hardworking people. They just, it was eye-opening to me. I'll never look at it the same way. And this movie will be great for discussion, Robert, because, there's so much that happens in this movie that I didn't even pick up years ago when I watched it. So it's a wonderful book. I look forward to it's an HBO series that's going to happen. And you guys, during the pandemic, everything's shut down. I mean, we're going to have to wait for these things. That's just the way it's going to be. And so in the meantime, we're going to just keep reading great books. And
That's right.
Book club and have wonderful authors like you, Leslie, and you live out in California.
I do.
And we are thrilled.
I grew up in Ohio, though, and I have to say, the first, 40 pages take place in Ohio, and I have never heard from so many of my high school friends, because they're like, oh my God, I remember that. And that was that person, and that was that. And oh, was that the first person who tried to feel you up? And oh, I bet you tried to get your first bra at this place. And it's been really interesting. So it's Midwest and California.
There's always ask authors when they go on tour, do you ever have anything unusual happen at a book signing? And some of the stories are incredible about people who show up out of the blue.
My old gymnastics coach showed up at my last one, but of course I didn't get a tour for this book. I'm touring on Zoom. So I'm thrilled that people like you are so supportive. I really appreciate it. It means the world.
I know that the Pulpwood Queens are going to hopefully
rise again.
Get on board, watch the Breathless Bubbles and Books. We're going to have you come and your husband I've invited you to come and present at Girlfriend Weekend along with Denise Kiernan, who interviewed you. I'm really excited about her new book.
What a great idea.
Yeah, so she just sent it to me, and I love The Last Castle. I just think it's so cool that you guys stayed connected after meeting at Girlfriend Weekend. We had so much fun that one. That was a 50.
So much. And when she happened to be in LA, like a year later, I was going to a doctor's appointment, I guess, for another cancer thing. And I just said, oh, come on in. And she used my office like all day. And then I came back, and it was just like, I had this level of trust because she was a girlfriend, And so we stayed in touch ever since. She's very cool. We want to go visit she and her husband as soon as, traveling is good. So
where do they live? Do they live in the Carolinas? Where?
Yeah, somewhere in there, South Carolina. It's a cool little town.
Cool.
Look great. Yeah.
Well, the Pulpwood Queens are all across the country. And the wonderful thing about last year, having our first virtual online book club convention, which Mandy and I really didn't know if we could pull off, it was so successful. We had book club members coming in from out of the country, authors from Spain, France, Malta, Canada, different parts of Canada. People came in from everywhere and they said, if you continue to do it this way, I can come. And so I'm going to have even more authors coming in from other locations in the world and book club members, but we're excited about it. It's going to be a week long, everybody. So
Oh, that's smart.
yeah, everybody needs to get signed up to come because, Mandy and I are now working on our list, and then all the bloggers and podcasters and everybody that's coming in. And then we're going to start putting it all together this summer. So we'll start putting it out there for you so you can see who all's coming. But it's going to be amazing. And we're going to try to work in some of the things that we did at Girlfriend Weekend that we didn't know how we were going to do this.
No, how could you?
I mean, you think about how Ellen took her show and Kelly Clarkson and stuff, and how they had to do it from Zooms. You guys, it actually, to me, I've gotten to know all of you so much better through the Zooms than I do at Girlfriend Weekend. I actually don't think I'll ever get rid of this, because I think when we do start meeting back in person, we're going to do both. Because
you could do more writerly stuff. There's all kinds of stuff you could do in person that are different than what you can do on Zoom. But Zoom certainly opens up things to so many more people, and you don't have to run around worrying about logistics and tables and chairs and food delivery. And
it's pretty nice.
I do miss the alligator on the menu though.
Oh yeah. It was a little tough on Saturday because I was on Zoom for 16 hours straight.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I thought I would, I thought I'd die, but I didn't.
Well, that's why a week is a great idea. So everyone can pace themselves and really come in and out and see the recordings.
I can't thank everybody who's here tonight, because each one of you has become really, really important to me, because the support. And there's going to be some new awards this year. I always give out these things called CAT Awards to people who go beyond the call. There's some people that always show up at every meeting or gathering, whether it's a film club, the writers club, the online book club, the Breathless Bubbles and Books. And so I'm going to start coming up with some things to do, some rewards. One of the things I'm going to do is I gotta pull this. This is too funny. I told Leslie that I have been cleaning out my closets, and I'm downsizing and getting rid of a lot of things. And I just ended up with all these handbags that were gifts and presents I've never even used, but they were new and I didn't want to give them away. But this one is going to be given away the last day of Breathless Bubbles and Books to the person who participates or makes the most posts, and including tonight. But I pulled this bag out, and this is hilarious. This is a corset.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Isn't it just darling?
It's perfect.
It's just darling. It's so fun. But I'm going to put one of Leslie's books in it, and one lucky winner is going to win this purse with her book at the end of the week. Oh my gosh. So is that not fun?
Perfect.
It kind of reminds me of the cover of your book.
Absolutely.
I don't think I ever took it anywhere, but it was very popular there was a thing where every outfit had a different purse, and I got these, and I couldn't even keep these in the shop. I got this one and I started ordering them, and I just couldn't. And I've got a whole bunch of bags. They're brand new. One of them is a lavender bag, and it looks like a tote. And then on the side, there's a spigot. And inside is a pouch, and you can put a full bottle of wine, and it's insulated.
Wow.
So, like, you can go to a tailgate party and
just pour your purse.
And I've never used it, so I thought I'm going to do a book in a bag promotions all through the summer. So this is just one of them. And when you see the other ones, you guys are just, people see things and they go, I've got to get it for Kathy. Like I had a high heel purse once, and I think I gave it away in a promotion. But they see it, but this just seems perfect for
It's perfect.
life. So come on to Breathless Bubbles and Books. You could win it. Robert, just all kinds of places you could take this.
Like a briefcase.
Quite the conversation starter.
Your camera case. There
I'll
you
take it to the office.
Ah.
I love you. I love you. Well, any other questions for Leslie tonight as we finish up our wonderful chat about her book, our book of the month, our May book, A Boob's Life. I just love it. You're going to love all the fabulous photos in the book, and it's going to remind you so much of, look at these shots. It's going to remind you so
That's my
much.
daughter. It's her birthday today, the one I was nursing there.
Oh my gosh. I had this bathing suit when I was a lifeguard.
Everybody did.
And it was, you're going to laugh. It was bright yellow velour.
That was velour also. That was orange velour. Yep.
Mine came from Sears.
Mine did too. Sears Wish book was everything.
Dude, oh my gosh, that would be too funny. Did yours really come from Sears?
It really did. We bought everything. Sears Wish book, my pink poodle bedspread, everything. We were all about Sears for sure. The
Oh,
wish book. We
my,
would just circle things.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I swear I had that, and I wore my Foster Grant sunglasses.
Wow.
I was very cool, and I had my hair streaked. It was
Oh.
visible streaks parted down the middle.
I used sun in, and then my hair turned orange and matched the suit.
I did. It made my hair feel like straw.
Yeah, that I didn't have hairdresser potential like you. So
Well, I never thought in a million years I'd ever be a hairdresser, but that's all in my book too.
I think you're quite, you've quite a few skills. That's maybe the least of them, but it's certainly significant.
Here's what I wish I'd known when I was this age in your book. We were told what we could be. We weren't told to go for our dreams or our potential. I was to be a nurse, a school teacher. Those were the two choices. And I knew I didn't want to be a school teacher, and I kind of faint at the sight of blood. So I told my high school counselor that I wanted to be an airline stewardess because I wanted to see the world. And he said, so which branch of the military do you want to go in? I said, I don't want to go into the military at all. And he said, well, to become an airline stewardess, you have to go through the Army, Air Force. I said, well, that's
True?
Yeah, that's what he told me. And I said, that I know that's not true.
Huh.
Because my mother and dad had a family friend. His girlfriend was a Pan Am flight attendant.
Right.
And she went to a Pan Am school in Kansas City. And he said, don't argue with me. You're already enrolled at Kansas State University. You're going to be a first grade teacher.
And those girls, the stewardesses, they needed to be a certain weight and a certain size, and they aged out at 23.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Women
have always been
But
fitting in some kind of bras.
I just wanted to travel. I wanted to go. I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. And then I figured I'd figure out later what I wanted to be. But you have to read my book to see all the.
I will.
I mean, I've run a bed and breakfast. I've done.
That's what I mean. Multi-talented.
Crazy things. So you guys, thank you all for joining. Anything you want to share with us before you go about what's happening? We just had the first anniversary of Pros in the Pandemic, which was awesome. And Kathy, anything you want to share that you're doing? Can you hear me?
Well, I can. I have something coming up next month. This month. I think a certain Queen Cat is going to be on my Facebook Live Story Hour.
That's right. Yes, that's
and
right.
we are going to talk about the breadth and the depth of everything in your life, and it would be much longer than an hour if we
I was going to say, you're going to need more than an hour for sure.
Well, and I feel like I could just give you the mic and you could just go for it. But I am going to ask some questions, burning questions I've always had.
Well, thank you very much. Thrilled. I got several invitations of things coming up. Grace, who was just here, invited me to be on her new radio show. It's all about storytelling. I'm so excited about that. I do these things. I really do these things because I want to share all of your stories. Because, if you read my book, like Grace read it, and she said, I see where you're coming from now. Books were so important to me because if I hadn't have become a reader and I hadn't read books, I don't think I'd be who I am today. I think I'd be one of these people that were really struggling, and I never was one to look to drugs and alcohol. Was just too scary for me. I always thought needles, I thought, what's wrong with these people? I was like a hippie without the drugs. I just want everybody to love one another, and I like to teach the world to sing. But I just really think that if we all work together, we can make this world a better place. And there's no better way to start than
That's my goal. Make the world a better place, for sure.
Make the world a better place. So thank you, Leslie Lehr.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you do.
And we're looking forward to your husband joining us, and Denise Kiernan, and
Thanks.
I'll be getting with all of you about everything that we're doing to collaborate together. And I just thank you all enough. I mean, this is wonderful that you're coming on board. This all is recorded, Leslie, and it's put on my Kathy L. Murphy channel.
Okay.
If any of you want to share it on your websites or anything, I'll be glad
Certainly
to
will.
send it to you. You can put it on your website. You can share it with all your friends. Everything I do on Facebook is shareable. So, you don't have to ask permission. I'm all about my life is an open book. So
It's a good book.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Until tomorrow, when we see what we're going to talk about on Breathless Bubbles and Books.
Yep.
We'll see you next Tuesday night, because it's all about the story. Thank you all so much. I love you.
Bye.
Next time. Bye, Leslie. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Love you, boobs.